everybody. Dan Illman, Mike here. The DRF race of the day for Saturday, March the 30th. Race number 12 at Oaklawn Park. It is the signature race of the Oaklawn meet. It is the Grade 1, $1.5 million Arkansas Derby. 3-year-olds potentially on their way to Louisville on the first Saturday in May. Let's take a look at this field. They're going to be traveling 1.125 miles at Oaklawn on Saturday. We have got a field of 10. Bob Baffert has the favorite in here, the number 7, Muth. He's not going to the Derby. He is getting a distance test. And Baffert, we know, does very, very well shipping into Oaklawn.
Yeah, he does. Listen, this horse was a good 2-year-old too. Maybe that's enough to make him the horse to beat in here, Dan. I kind of feel like the 2 Timberlake is actually the horse to beat in this race, but it's probably more of a coin flip.
I tend to agree. Timberlake has at least proven his ability around 2 turns, winning over the track at Oaklawn in the Rebel. Let's see where he stacks up on our Timeform US pace projector. We're expecting a pretty solid pace. The number 4, Time for Truth, is a horse that did do well around 2 turns last time out when pushing quick fractions. I expect him to be on the lead. I expect Muth to be sitting second. This pace projector looks all right to me.
Yeah, me too. I don't know how fast they'll actually wind up going in here, but we'll see, Dan. Time for Truth does kind of look like a speed horse in this race. I suspect they'll go with it. Muth, they haven't been trying to make the lead with it, but he likes to race up close.
If the pace is fast, keep an eye on the number 5, Liberal Arts. Note the LP Chiclet over the LP flag over his Chiclet, fastest Timeform US late pace rating. We'll start things off with the 1, Will Take It. Wayne Lucas taking a shot with an expensive son of Tappet. He is still a maiden. Here's his most recent race, going 1.16 miles, maiden special. He was 42-1 in a maiden race, Mike, based on his first 2 starts, 2 disastrous efforts. He has a big look at this. He's going to get wired.
He takes a nice step forward in here, though. He got a great trip in this race for really the first time in his life, Dan. And he runs. He's got a head in front, it looks like, mid-stretch here. And he just can't quite seal the deal, but it's a step in the right direction. He's got a pedigree that suggests he gets better with time and with distance. I mean, it kind of feels like this is the wrong race to run him in, but he drew very well. And there, you can tell he's got a little bit of talent.
Timberlake showed talent as a 2-year-old. We saw that when winning the Champagne. He was also a little bit green in several of his races and a bit temperamental to boot. In the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, a race that didn't have a fast pace, he really wanted to pull in the early part of that race. He then finally settled and he just didn't finish. He seemed a bit more professional in this race. The Grade 2 Rebel, his seasonal debut, a race where he settled in the second flight. He got to the outside. It takes him a while to change leads, but once he does, he's better than this field.
Yeah, he is. He's just better than these horses. And even though he was on the outside all the way, he got a good trip in this race. I just think you have to like everything he did here in the 3-year-old debut, Dan. It felt like a forward move. He was a little more professional in this race, and I think you have to really like the way he finishes it off, suggesting that distance is no problem. I didn't love his Breeders' Cup. I didn't think he ran great in there, and certainly Muth ran better than he did. I also didn't really care for the ride he got that day. I'd like them to be a little more aggressive. Keep this horse up close to the pace.
And breaking post position 2, there's a good chance you can work out a pace tracking ground saving trip, only maybe 2, 3, 4 lengths off the lead. The 3 is Dematic, going out for Steve Asmussen. He ran in the Rebel. He was 5th. That was his first start against winners. It was kind of an even performance. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if he improves here. He's so lightly raced.
Yeah, right. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he improved either, but he really has to improve. They tried him in the Rebel last time, a little rank early in that race, but after that, I thought all in all the trip was a good one, and he really couldn't make his presence felt. He's another horse. You can tell he's got some talent, Dan, but he's really got to move forward if he's going to beat this field, because this race came up pretty strong.
The number 4, Time for Truth, showed blazing speed sprinting in his first 2 starts, which include a stakes placing in the Ozark in his second lifetime outing. They could have run him in one of the major preps here at Oaklawn. They decided to try a little bit more of a slower tactic. They tried a 2-turn race. It was a hours of 2 life allowance. This race at Oaklawn, and Time for Truth was pushing a solid pace throughout, and he proved he could stay the distance. This was a pretty likable effort, maybe a little bit fast, early, slow, late, but at least he showed he could stay a little bit, and he's going to be on the lead likely.
Yeah, I guess they'll go to the lead with him here. I don't know if that's necessarily an ideal position in this kind of a race, Dan. He's way up in class for this. His figures have regressed with every start so far. And I get it. It was a wet track right off of a maiden win when they tried that stakes race 2 starts back. And Valentine Candy's a pretty nice horse. This horse was absolutely no match in there. This field's way tougher than that one.
The number 5 Liberal Arts looks like a sleeper in here. This horse was a graded stakes winner at Churchill Downs last year, going 2 turns on a wet track. They tried the Southwest Stakes last time out for his seasonal debut. He caught a muddy track. He caught a winner that freaked out with a perfect trip, a perfect rail skimming trip, and Liberal Arts was running on sneaky well at the end of that race. I think 1.125 is good for him, and I think he gained a lot of fitness from that last start.
Agree with all that stuff. And it's also at least worth pointing out, you and I talked about this. I think we recapped that Southwest, and that winner got a great ride, dropping in front of Liberal Arts onto the first turn there and sort of put Liberal Arts at the back. And I think that really made a little bit of a difference. And I'm not suggesting Liberal Arts was going to win if he got closer early, but it made a difference in that race. This horse ran at the end. I liked all of his starts last year as a 2-year-old. He gets a better trip in this race and some pace to run out. He's dangerous.
The 6 is Informed Patriot. This horse was third in the Smarty Jones at Oaklawn on New Year's Day, going a mile with the short stretch. They tried the Sunland Derby last time out, and on paper it seemed like a pretty good spot for this horse. He just did not run very well at all. It's interesting, though, that Asmussen is keeping the faith.
That is a little interesting. Boy, he was disappointing in that Derby last time. I mean, that felt like a really good spot for him, and he just, for whatever reason, didn't fire any kind of a shot. He's clearly better than that. He's another horse, though. He's got to find a way to take a step forward. This is a tough race.
Muth won a sort of watered-down version of the Grade 1 American Pharaoh at 1.16 last year, then ran just fine, won second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, no match for fierceness, and just didn't stay with that horse the final 16th of a mile. I still think this 1.125 is a big question mark for him. Baffert brought him back for his one and only start thus far this year, sprinting. Let's watch that 7-furlong San Vicente. It was a race where on paper he looked very strong. He was 2-5. He got up close to the pace, and he puts it away with a respectable 90 buyer.
Yeah, too good for these horses, but it's a nice stretch run that he puts in here. It's a perfect race off the layoff, you would think, for a horse who was a good 2-year-old dad, and now they're going to stretch him back out. Listen, he was fine as a 2-year-old, obviously. I wasn't blown away by any of his races, save his debut, which I thought was excellent when they let him use his speed. I think the point that you made in the open is maybe the most important thing about this horse. There's no Derby for him. He's not prepping for anything. They're probably trying to win this race.
They're probably trying to win this race, and it looked like they were going to try the Rebel. Baffert wasn't entirely pleased with the way he was training, so he backed off slightly, and now he's given him 3 consecutive 6-furlong workouts, perhaps to build up his stamina leading up to this race. Just Steel is the number 8. This horse lost ground in the Smarty Jones, lost ground in the Southwest, lost ground in the Rebel. Post position 8, a little bit better here. The Rebel was a step backwards, but again, it's so tough to win when you're carrying so much ground against a horse like Timberlake.
Probably wanted to see him run better than that anyway, but you're right, Dan. I mean, did not have a good trip last time. Just hung on the outside, way too wide all the way around there. Southwest was better wide that day as well, but he ran a better race that day. You know, I don't know. He's going to be a big price in here, and he's clearly got some ability. I don't know how many more chances you want to give this horse, though.
Mystic Dan absolutely exploded last time out in the Grade 3 Southwest. It was over a muddy track. He received one of the rides of this Kentucky Derby prep season. Let's watch the Southwest. Brian Hernandez Jr. was able to find the rail on the first turn. He saved all the ground, but he settles this in 3 strides. He rolls right past Just Steel. He wins going away by 8 in ridden out fashion with a 101. He'd always shown some ability, Mike, but nothing like this. Is he just a wet track move up?
I think it's the biggest question of the race, Dan, because this horse, if he runs this race back, he's going to be super dangerous in here. It's a very impressive win. And it's not the only fast race that he's ever run. And the other one was on fast dirt. So, I mean, I don't know, man. He's a real wild card in here. Personally, I didn't love his Smarty Jones or the first time they stretched him out the 1-turn mile. I thought he got a good trip in that race against a good field, albeit, but I just didn't love that performance either. So I don't really know what to make of him, but he was good last time.
Like many Asmussen train runners, the number 10 Imperial Gun took a substantial step forward in his second lifetime start, showing much improved speed off it, better than it looked. Career debut going a mile. This horse wants distance. They ran him in a first level allowance race last time out. He was a little bit disappointing against Seize the Gray, who came back to run third in the Jeff Ruby last week with an 85 buyer on synth.
I mean, it's probably not the right race to run him in, especially off the last one, because he didn't get a great trip in there, but he also didn't really fire a big shot through the stretch. That being said, I understand why Asmussen wants to run him in this race. This horse was really green first time out and showed some real talent. His maiden win, I thought, was super impressive when he got forward. I like this horse. I just don't know if I like this race for him.
Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. It's top pick time for our Saturday race of the day, the Arkansas Derby. I like where you're going. Liberal Arts is a horse that should get a fine pace setup. He acts like he wants to run all day long, and his seasonal debut, that last 16th of a mile, was pretty strong.
Yeah, I think this horse is pretty good, Dan. I think he fits right in with these horses. I don't think he's overmatched at all. I made Timberlake the horse to beat because I really liked his 3-year-old return. I'm not, way against Muth. I'm just not his biggest fan. He's going to be a short price. I'll try to beat him.
Yeah, the price is the biggest obstacle with Muth, as well as the distance. Mystic Dan, of course, has to answer the fast track question. I do think Muth's going to trip out in here, sitting off of the 4 where time form has him, and he's going to get a jump on these horses turning for home. If he stays a mile and an eighth, that sort of trip might propel him into the winner's circle. And again, as Mike mentioned, no Derby for him. This is a 7-figure pot, and it could be his main goal for the spring and into the summer. 7-9-2-5 for me, 5-2-7-10 for Mike in the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby, or Saturday race of the day. Good luck.